Hello, beautiful strangers, and welcome back to another episode of Myth. When last we left off, our good friend Yuri Yamagami was going through our, well, not so good friend, I guess. We're still as of yet innocent until proven guilty in the vaguest terms friend, is weird. And we went through his room. And we saw he had a bunch of figures, and he had an old PC that I bitched about a couple of times, or something like that. Yeah. I don't think there was anything else that I should really feel the need to mention. Right? Sorry, I've been distracted over the weekend. Well, Sunday mostly, because Sunday, my time, there was a bunch of stuff going on, so I was busy all day, and I was, yeah. But anyway, that it? Oh, I have some blackberry mead and it's fucking incredible. Fuck me, is it good? It's so good. Do recommend. It's very, the blackberry taste is very strong. It is a blackberry mead after all, and man, it's good. Very, very good. And it's not super sweet either. So that's nice. And it's even semi-local. It's like made in my state, just like half the state south of me, but still in my state technically. But let's get back into it, shall we? Deleted diary.txt. I could hear Ness racking his brain on the other side of the headset, sticking out of the side of the flash drive. Whether that info turns out to be helpful depends on you. Would it be possible to find where it might be uploaded with the info from the rental server? Hiro-san, are you asking a cybercop to break privacy laws? What if someone's life depended on it? I continue to try to persuade him. Fine then. If the subscription ran out, I don't think I'll find anything besides the connection point on the server side and maybe what he was paying with, though. That's plenty. I'll treat it as something nice next time I see you. Make it some good gin. As you wish. The mastermind who drank nothing but cocktails gave me a wry laugh and, as though to run away, hung up. You know, I've never actually had gin before. I kind of want to try it, but at the same time, I don't want to go and buy like a bottle of gin and then find out I fucking hate it. Because I did that with absinthe, thinking that I would adore absinthe because it's like I'm like goth as fuck sometimes, and not so much anymore, especially. Back then I was more goth than I am now. But yeah, I bought a bottle of absinthe thinking I would like it, and I fucking hated it. I think I managed to choke down like a quarter of the bottle before I just said fuck it and gave up. I might try it now. That was years ago. I think that was right after I turned 21. That was a good couple of years ago. I mean, because I'm not super old, but I mean, I'm older than 21 by a couple of years. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I put the PP in my pocket and pulled out the memo sheet. I'm a fucking child. Red nip cap 1. 1 p.m., 1 a.m., 1:00. I stared at the code-like words. It was hard to make anything out just from red nip cap and 1:00. The question was what BZBGRFNAQBH meant. I could have just asked Oz, except the prosecutor was supposed to be interrogating him today. Suspects who deny suspicion tend to be occupied. It was possible that I couldn't see him again for a long time. It's probably a cipher. I heard a voice from within the crowd, or I heard a deep voice from within the crowd. The sudden interruption threw me off, but the familiar voice quickly brought me back. Hey, I read your email. Itagawa, try saying hello before sneaking up on me like that. A man with a somewhat dirty trench coat was standing before me. Oops, sorry. PN, unknown. FN, Edogawa. He was a detective from the Mitsuhashi Police Department's first investigation department. It's difficult to imagine from his seedy outfit, but his excellent, accurate work was even enough to gain my respect. Couldn't you have just replied to the email? Sorry, I just remembered what happened when I happened to see you there. Edogawa nonchalantly scratched his head. You've always been flaky, Edogawa. Like you're one to talk. I could see a squinting smile through Edogawa's long bangs. Well, whatever. What's this about a cipher? Edogawa's expression changed to a more serious one, and he took a look at the memo sheet in my hand. Whatever. The letters represent other letters. Yes, that is what a cipher is, more or less. I checked the memo sheet again. Let's see. Ow. Ow! Edogawa put his hand to his chin and thought. The most common cipher is to shift characters some places forward or back in the alphabet. Try thinking like that. I felt useless compared to the speed at which Edogawa was figuring it out. I see now. Edogawa told me to wait a moment and began quietly move his fingers through the air as if drawing something out. He seemed to be considering possible patterns. It's Omotesando, I think. Omotesando. The most obvious thing to assume was that it was the meeting information, with Omotesando being the place, 1 being the time, and a red knit cap being something the other person would wear for identification. It was too soon to assume that was correct, however. That would be a terrible question for an interference test. Too difficult. Having successfully cracked the code, Edogawa was still glaring at the memo sheet. I find ciphers interesting. I've made a couple, never complex ones. I'm actually curious, although too lazy to, and don't really care that much, to go back and see how those letters match up with that, to see if it is a consistent cipher or not, and to see if, somebody pulled it out of their ass. I would also have to go and look at the original, because it might be, say, kana, and, going from one, from kana to a different kana might be, they might have a different cipher. I don't know. By the way, Edogawa, what's your current investigation? Looking for evidence related to the guy you're defending. The detective in charge of this investigation didn't notice the memo sheet. In that case, the prosecutor shouldn't know either. That's a rather elementary error. Elementary, my dear Watson? Why do you ask? I found this in Oz's room. Edogawa scrunched his nose for a moment, but shortly returned to his former expression. Oh, huh. He said, as disappointed as usual. Edogawa and I were in opposing positions. I was the lawyer charged with fighting to defend the suspect, while he was the detective seeking evidence to prove his guilt. Yet, we didn't hide information from each other. The reason being that we knew each other as people. To put it neatly, we met in college. I just haven't been able to escape him. But after all the time we've spent together, we've become in sync in regards to our pursuit of the truth. Any information that wasn't top secret, we would exchange with each other. To put it simply, we were the best possible enemies, as well as friends. Oh, that's right, Edogawa muttered. Apparently, a suspect detected in the glue Oz used for his models is capable of vaporizing narcotics. Huh? A substance detected in the glue. Okay. It's, sure, whatever. I'm not going to think too much about that because I'm going to give myself a headache if I do. I have an idea as to what that note's about. Edogawa took a clear pouch containing the glue out of his bag. This is one of the pieces of evidence the prosecutor's keeping to himself. I'm not supposed to show it to anyone. I was about to grab it, but Edogawa intentionally put it away just before I could. Top secret. I knew he was just messing with me, but it still made me mad. I gave you info that might say where he bought it from. Don't I deserve something in return? It's not like I asked. Well, thanks for the valuable info, regardless. I had nothing to say in response. You can leave the drug-related matters to the police. It's our job anyway. I know. So how's it going on your end? I shrugged to say the current situation was questionable. Despite being the one who asked in the first place, Edogawa murmured with disinterest. It seemed too simple. So simple that I have my doubts. Well, it happens. Edogawa ran his fingers through his hair. It looked like it hadn't been washed in days. I couldn't say for sure that scratching his head stimulated the nerves to bring it about, but Edogawa loudly yawned. Are you busy? His tone was like that of a cat's meow. When he spoke to me like this, it always meant he was inviting me out for a drink. I'd be happy to. There's plenty I'd still like to ask you anyway. That's aggressive. Almost makes me want to hire you onto the force. I'll pass. I'm shocked to hear that from the least aggressive man in the world who's also holding that job. At any rate, Edogawa and I headed to the shopping mall. By the way, Edogawa, what do you know about ciphers? I asked as he lumbered along. Well, it came up during a job. Well, not my job, someone else's job. They asked me if I knew about it. Or if I'd known about it. So, I checked the guide on ciphers, and it didn't take too long to get most of the common ones memorized. They tend to follow a few particular patterns. Well, yeah, the most common pattern of a cipher, the absolute most common from what I know, which isn't a ton, but I've looked up at it a little bit for tabletop stuff, of course, and because ciphers are important in military history, and I like history. But yeah, typically the simplest and most common ciphers that you'll find are you take a letter and replace it with one symbol or a different letter, and you do that consistently throughout. Like, say, you move the simplest cipher you can do is to move everything forward one letter. It's easily crackable, but it's a simple cipher and works for this example. So A is B, B is C, C is D, and so on and so forth. And it's pretty easy to memorize. It's just, a common cipher is just, okay, well, O is S. The bullet letter. I don't know why it took me so long to think of a different letter. I have no excuse. But yeah, and it's just, so every O, everything where there is an S, rather, in this, what is written would actually be an O, and you just count on every word or on every letter backwards or forward the number of letters it takes to get to, to match up with the one that you figured out. So, just, yeah. You can get infinitely more complex than that, of course. I mean, hell, there's, the Enigma machine and World War II ciphers and code breaking and code talking and all of that. And then you have like the Code War and Cold War, the Cold War and things like one-time journals, or was they one-time pads, something like that, one-time something. It's basically you write something on a pad with one code, and then it's matched up to the same pad that somebody else has, and they match it up, and it only ever works without one code on that one sheet, and every other sheet in that pad is different. More or less. I think that's more or less how it works. I've not read a ton about it, but yeah, I'm moving along now. I stared at Edogawa with shock. I mean, it sucks when someone confides in you and you can't help them, He had a bad habit of thoroughly researching any topic he was asked about and not familiar with. You know, that wine is good, meat is good, whatever you want to call it. But it doesn't really help to alleviate dry throat, so I might just have to sip on water the entire time as well. Oh well, because it would take precedence over everything involving his private life. Edogawa's broken numerous promises with me as a result of his research efforts. Did he do it out of generosity or out of pride? Given Edogawa's temperament, it was almost certainly the latter. That place okay? Edogawa pointed to a bar that was part of a chain. What a cool, trendy bar. You go there often? Complain too much and I'm making you pay for it. After I teasingly cocked my head at Edogawa, we went through the automatic door to the bar. The place was so noisy, I felt like I was in front of the station again. Welcome. The volume of the waiter's voice competed with the crowd. Table for two, please. The waiter probably couldn't hear Edogawa's low voice, but he still led us to our seats with a smile. Look how young they are. Edogawa glanced at what appeared to be some rowdy students as he quietly muttered. Welp, let's drink like the old people we are and keep it quiet. As a single woman in her 30s, it was hard to find that funny. I glared at him as I took my seat. Yeah, you get a lot of shit for being a single woman in your, single really, in your 30s. Women more so. In the States. I've heard it's fucking nightmarish in Japan. I mean, hell, Christmas cake is a thing. And it's like 26 in Japan. 26 in Japan. A Christmas cake, I'm not going to explain it, but yeah, that's a thing. And I've not really seen that or heard of that too much over here. So, how's the investigation going? I asked the man gripping a box of Camel cigarettes. Pretty well on our end. He clumsily ignited his lighter as he responded. I mean, barely any question that he did it. Edogawa stared back at me. Do you have any proof? Plenty. It's obvious enough on his face, but here, look at this. Edogawa took 3 photos out of his bag. They were pictures of the victims who was found in an alley downtown, and Oz. Taken at 7 p.m. on October 22nd, about 30 minutes before the crime was committed. The image, likely taken by a security camera, clearly showed the both of them. Now, here's one that was taken from a different camera 30 minutes later. Oz was pictured, but I didn't see the victim. Of course, this camera is located in downtown Yokohama. I see. This clearly would be definitive proof. Would it? They were on a security camera picture earlier. That's not proof. Like, I don't know if the burden of proof in Japan and that whole thing is different, but just they were in a security camera picture together. It's more than that. Him having the murder weapon in his home is, a bigger sign than, oh, they were on I mean, that can be somewhat corroborating evidence, but that's not evidence. That's not proof. That's not definitive proof. Whatever. Besides this, the fingerprints on the murder weapons used in each case match up with Oz's. Perfect matches at a whole 12 different points on the prints. They have to be his. I studied the image as Edogawa called a waiter and ordered 2 glasses of beer for us. Look all you want, but that won't change what we're seeing. I know. As I continued to look at the image of Oz, I asked Edogawa something that was on my mind. Leon, what have the police found about Program X? Seems to be having difficulty analyzing it. They haven't even cracked where the email was sent from yet. Well, I'm sure they'll come up with an explanation for when he got it, or where he got it from. All they have to say is he brought it from some ill-willed cracker and deleted all of his email history. Edogawa blew it off as though it wasn't a problem at all. Regarding the narcotics, drugs were detected in Edogawa's body fluids. What type? Marijuana. Looks like he used it regularly too. Yes, because that leads... Bleh. I know Japan is a lot stricter on drugs than we are here, but fucking Christ, dude. Seriously. Did he? According to the science department's analysis, Oz had an abnormal amount of THC in his system. What do you fucking do? Marijuana doesn't have nearly as dangerous an amount, and it's unlikely he consumed enough to reach this level in a short amount of time. He's got symptoms of substance dependence too. It's physically implausible that he became an addict instantaneously. I picked up some peanuts and chewed on them like I was trying to chew on Edogawa's info. Also, regarding one of his victims, Edogawa took a drink of the second beer that had been carried over at some point before he resumed speaking. Looks like he got a threat message or something along those lines. Huh? I swirled around a condensed drop of water on the surface of the beer bottle as I awaited Edogawa's response. He wrote about it in his notebook. It was the office worker from Kanagawa. Give me the details. To sum it up, it sounds like he got an anonymous email. That email was evidently bad for Hotoke-san, so he hired a detective to look for the sender, and that detective found Oz's host. Then, based on the PN specified by the host, the victim confirmed that the sender was Oz. I presumed that was what was written in the notebook. In addition, the victim had plans to meet with Oz on October 22nd. Don't need me to tell you where the meeting spot was, do you? Wait, this is a college student we're talking about. Would he really have the ability to pull off something like this? Besides, Oz lives in Tokyo. It's hard to believe there's any connection between the two. Try looking at what we do know instead of speculating about what we don't. You wouldn't suspect Oz if you were a prosecutor? Of course I would. Well, have the police found any negative connections between the two? We're looking into it. Tomorrow, we're searching his wife's house. Edogawa sighed. In the meantime, I chewed on the incohesive pieces of information. You look down. Don't see that often. Beer and cigarette in hand, Edogawa looked at me with a mechanical expression. In any case, let's go over the contradictions. According to Oz, he very seldom left his apartment over the last few months out of the need to repair the Gundanes, which would entirely rule out any distant travel. But on October 22nd, the day the crime was committed, Oz was sighted in downtown Yokohama. That's contradiction 1. Contradiction 2. According to Oz's landlady, Oz only started acting strange recently. But according to the police investigation, Oz's bodily fluids showed that he must have been using drugs over an extended period of time. And contradiction 3, though it can't definitively be called a contradiction. There's the email that Oz supposedly sent to the police. It makes it look as though Oz's targets were random. However, based on the police's investigation, one of the victim's notebooks shows a potentially deep connection to Oz. What are you thinking about? Looking at the evidence we have, I'd agree with the prosecution that he's guilty, but to make that judgment would leave numerous contradictions in the testimony. Let's say Oz's testimony is questionable due to his drug use. But then, what about his landlady? Surely she had no particular reason to cover for a man who simply lived in the apartment she managed. This didn't feel like it was coming together. What do you think personally, Edogawa? Even the police should see something off about this. I did say there was barely any question that he did it. You could bear to be more direct. Honestly, I agree with you. What do you mean by that? I mean, I agree it's too simple. Evidence or not, everything we're finding is leaving me unsatisfied. With a bitter look, Edogawa finished off his second beer. It's like a crime novel written by a little kid. All the pieces are just coming together automatically. Like he felt his comparison was perfect, Edogawa looked somehow content. To break the silence, I ordered a third set of drinks from the waiter. It was a whiskey for me and sake for Edogawa. I do like sake more than whiskey, but I'm still not the biggest fan. Then again, I do live in the States, and I've really only been able to get my hands on consistently cheap sake. I've had expensive sake at a restaurant before, but it was warmed. I don't like warm sake. I like it chilled. If I drink it, that's the only way I can drink it. Warm is unpleasant. And room temp, I don't remember. But yeah, I don't know. I want to try good chilled sake, but I can't get that anywhere, at least not cheaply. What do you be doing on the defense side? All the information the cops and prosecution had would inevitably lead to a guilty verdict for Oz. What I could do was, I suppose all I can do is try to reduce his sentence. As though to say that was the obvious thing to do, Edogawa just nodded twice. My only option was to get what I could out of the perspective of him being deranged, but something was still bothering me. I sipped on the awful whiskey as I thought about what to do next. So you got some bar whiskey. Or not bar whiskey, well whiskey. Got it. Myth, Day 3, Home. And I think this is where I'm going to end off this episode. That was a little intriguing to me, looking at the specifics, not specifics maybe, but looking at getting a bit more information about Oz's case. Again, I find crime thrillers, crime dramas, I find true crime and stuff like that to be interesting, so I might be enjoying that more than it actually is good, but I don't know. I'm enjoying it, and that's really all that matters to me. Because, I mean, if somebody else doesn't enjoy it, that's fine. I'm enjoying it. I'm the one reading it, so I'm having fun. I like this visual novel. But next time, I think we might be learning a little bit more about that time dilation that happened, and that could be fun. Well, I hope to see you all next time.